Geno Young is my newest friend. Awesome author, and just an all-around great guy. Geno, you were just recently on Laura Trump's show. You've kind of been all over the place, and you have a fantastic book called "Sex, Drugs, and Illiteracy." And I would like to ask you to tell us a little bit about this new book of yours because it's quite significant.
Absolutely. So yes, I have been everywhere. I've been on Lara Trump's show. I was on Dr. Drew Pinsky's show, RSBN last week. I was on my friend. He has a podcast called The Conservative College with Professor Toto. I was on with him on Tuesday actually, and on Tuesday my Amazon rank really shot up after his show. So that was really amazing that he brought me on impromptu. But to my book, I actually spent 14 months in the education system here in Illinois, and I'll hold it up so everyone can see it. I spent 14 months in the education system in Illinois, and what I saw was absolutely horrific. I would not wish it on my worst enemy. It's nothing that I thought it would be. Full disclosure, I went to private school, so my parents did not want me a part of public school, and I sort of always knew why. But you never know until you know. You just don't know. But anyway, I went in there, and what I saw was horrific. I saw just an overall sense of apathy from the students and the teachers alike, and from the administrators. I saw an environment that was not it was not trying to foster a learning environment at all. I saw a lot of parents who were completely just out to lunch, not paying a lot of attention to what was going on. So I just thought that I would write it all down, and the next thing I know, I just start like journaling, and next thing I know, I have 200 pages of stories.
Wow, it's so great. Your memoirs. Now, welcome to the big dogs. You're on Freedom Talk now. No, we're kind of a small show, but very impactful. And I'm glad we're going to be having you in the next issue of Freedom Talk magazine, which is going to be the theme is going to be for the May issue, the power of music and entertainment to transform culture. And I understand you're a musician as well, you and your brothers.
Yes, actually, we're classically trained musicians right here in Chicago. Our parents put us into music school when we were like 5 years old. So I play percussion, drums, xylophone. I can do timpani, all types of hand drums, African djembe, Latin drums. My brother plays pipe organ and piano and Hammond organ, and my youngest brother plays the bass guitar. So we're sort of like the entire rhythm section. So we do teach music lessons privately. That's actually what I do
Oh, wow.
now when I'm not promoting this book. That's what I do now that I no longer work in the public education system. So yes, we were all classically trained, and we play music. We can write music and different things like that as well. So we're blessed that way.
Oh, that's
Actually,
cool.
we started in our great grandmother's church. She was the pastor of a church for over 30 years here in Chicago. And
Wow.
really, that's how we sort of, got rid of any stage fright. I mean, I never really had stage fright, but my other brothers did. But that's how we sort of honed our skills right here locally.
Well, I don't mean to brag, but I can play Spotify. And well, actually, I'm a pretty decent singer too. So I was in quartet and chorale and all that kind of stuff. Maybe a
Nice.
little rusty, but
I sing
uh,
too. Nice.
oh, nice. Yeah, I love music. I'm really excited about this upcoming issue. And I don't think I told you this, Gino, but I actually taught for a year in Sri Lanka. I helped run a school for young adults. The main class I taught was reading. I love to tell kids stories and young people stories. And I also worked for a year after I got my bachelor's degree on the border of El Paso and Juarez as a bilingual fourth grade teacher. So I've been in that environment. Tell us more about what you saw and why you have concerns.
Okay, well, when I first started teaching, and I get into this early on in my book, when I was doing my research for my book, one of the things that I noticed early on was that I noticed that when I would be teaching in AP classes or even special ed classes, I would see children in there acting out, and I would see it in particularly advanced placement classes, children in there who you could spot like a sore thumb. They would stick out, and I would say, okay, I know that kid right there doesn't belong in advanced placement. And for the longest, I was sort of perplexed, wondering why are they placing these children, or should I say, why are there children in advanced placement who are acting just like normal children out in the school, just in general education classes. And I had teachers tell me, teachers that have been teaching for 30 years, they came to me and told me, that they were placing children into classes that did not belong there to get more and more funding from the government. So just a little background, in
Wow.
Illinois, it costs approximately $21,000 just to send a child to school. But if you reclassify them as a special education IEP, as they call it, or as advanced placement, it doubles to over $41,000. So these school systems have found different ways to run up their funding and get more and more money from the government. So, as I always say, they're sort of gaming the system in that regard. So that was one of the earliest things that I saw. And then later on, the more that I taught there, I saw that there was a disconnect between just basic common courtesy and discipline and the classroom structure. And what I mean by that is I would write up the children, for misbehaving or whatever. I would turn it into the dean's office and nothing would come of it. I would notice it was sort of like a revolving door of the same students doing the same um, foolishness in my classes, regardless of what class it was or with what teacher should have been in that room, and nothing would come of it. And I would keep on writing on the discipline reports, please follow through, please follow through. And this was all happening at Hillcrest High School. And then by the time I got over to Tinley Park High School, I wrote the same thing, please follow through. And this is actually a story I don't think I've told before on a podcast. I was sitting in a room one day, and a child came in and he was asking, well, I'll go back a little bit. I was sitting in the room and I got there early and I noticed that there were like these seats on the side of the classroom just lined up like these chairs, these plastic school chairs. And I took all those chairs out and I stacked them up and I put them behind my desk because about a week or so prior to that, I had kids come in that same room and they decided they weren't going to sit in normal desks like all the rest of the kids. They were going to sit over in these plastic chairs and goof off. So, the first time that happened, I was like, if there's a second time, it will not be that way. So the second time came around, I got to that room, saw those chairs over there. I pulled those chairs, put them behind my desk. I'm like, okay, we're not doing that today. Everyone is going to be sitting in a desk, working, being productive. So I'm sitting there, the bell rings, the children come in. This one boy comes in at Tinley Park High School, and he doesn't see his plastic desk that he likes to sit at, or plastic seat rather, he likes to sit at. And he comes in, he's acting, belligerently. And I tell him, I say, no, we're not doing that today. You're going to have to sit in the desk. He gets mad. He gets up, runs out of the classroom, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to deal with this. So I just mark him absent. I said, if you don't want to learn, you're not going to disrupt my classroom. It's better that you leave. I always say it's better that you leave. So he left, and I marked him absent. The day went on. I something just tells me go back in there and look at your attendance roster. I go in there and I can clearly see that his attendance had been changed from absent to present. And I said to myself, okay, I know that that's not what I think it is. So I changed his attendance back to absent. The next thing I know, the door opens and one of the administrators come in and they tell me, well, we took him and we put him in something called the reset room or a safe space for him because we try to keep the tension down in the classroom. So if the students don't like a substitute, we'll take them out of the classroom and just let them be there. And I'm like, fine, you can do whatever you want to do, just don't mark him present when he's absent from my class. And they didn't like that. The next thing I know, I'm bumping heads with the dean's office like crazy over this incident. And long story short, I end up getting sent to HR because they were angry, saying that I was being too tough on the kids and I was instituting too much discipline and I was creating an uneasy environment in the classroom. I believe the exact words they said was I was creating too much tension, unnecessary tension in the classroom. So essentially, they ended up sending me to HR simply for doing my job and trying to institute order in an orderless system. And for the longest, I was sort of perplexed by that. And when I was speaking to HR, she was telling me, well, you know what? These are just children. Things aren't like it was when you went to school 10 years ago or when I was in school 30 years ago. You have to try to get down on the children's level and you have to try to, I guess basically ingratiate yourselves with them. And she was using all these really weird, whacked out leftist terms trying to coddle the kids. And I was just looking at her like, "Are you serious, lady? Like, what are you talking about?" So
Awesome.
I was sort of perplexed by that for the longest. And my grandmother actually ended up telling me when I told her about it, she said, "You know what, Gino? It's not that you did anything wrong. You were doing your job, and you were forcing them to do their job in that dean's office, and they didn't like that, and that's why you ended up getting sent to HR for simply doing your job because you were coming in instituting order, and they couldn't have that."
Well, this reminds me so much. My two oldest sons My oldest son is 24, which I think is not a lot younger than you are. You're 29, is it?
Yes, that's correct.
You've run for Congress too, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, in
Yes.
2022, I was the youngest federal candidate.
It's so amazing, but it reminds me of a school that my little boys went to when they were in grade school. It's in Bend, Oregon. It's called Westside Village, and it is one of these magnet schools. You have teachers going around wearing the Che Guevara shirts and everything,
Mm.
and it was complete chaos. I'd go in to help my kids, and there'd be some kids jumping on the tables, and as we're trying to work, there were kids just wandering in and out of the bathroom. There's drug use and everything, but this one kid was picking on one of my kids, and of course they tend to favor the aggressor, not the victim. So this kid who was picking on my child was, of course, I don't know, a victim of society or something. So what they do is they do these interventions or counseling or what do they call it? Put them in a room together and, gosh, have this whatever it is. But what happens is the bullies just despise that, and they pick on the kids even harder because it's like you told on me, like you're a snitch. And I remember one time this kid came up when I was talking to the principal, female principal, who always treated me with contempt, I think because I was a man and a father. And this kid came up, and I was there with my son too, and I said, "This is the boy that's been hitting my son and picking on him." And she said, "Well, he has some issues, or he has some health issues or something like that." And the kid literally cursed out the principal and left. And she treated it like, "Oh, poor him," and nothing for my son. And then one day I came in to pick up my kids from school, and I was met by a line of teachers and the principal, and they physically blocked me. And then I found out, she pulls me into a room, and a police officer walks in. I'm like, "What's this about?" I'm a vetted volunteer in the school. I've volunteered in the school since kindergarten. She said, "Well, you're not going to like this, but you're going to go home to a trespass order that you can't go to the school." And my kids, I was a single father at the time. Their mother had colluded with the principal and demonized me, and it was completely unfair. So I ended up going to the school district and saying, "Hey, this isn't. There's no cause for this at all." I met with the assistant superintendent of schools, again a female. They held this closed door hearing and upheld it. So I ended up fighting all the way up to the superintendent of schools. We even went to a school board meeting, and my 12-year-old son got up and said, "The way they're treating my dad is wrong. He's actually been helping me." Their PR gal, by the way, met me at the door again. Pulled me into a room, tried to stop me. Well, finally, I get to the superintendent of schools. He's a male. He said, "It's obvious what happened, that this principal took sides against you as a single father, and I'm rescinding the trespass order and writing you a letter of apology." So, but this was weeks of fighting and being physically prevented from picking up my sons from school. If I would have stepped on the sidewalk in front of the school, I'd have been arrested. And it was all because I called out that my son was being bullied, and I was a present parent, and they don't like that. So I thought at the time, "Oh, this is this hippy dippy, Oregon left wing school." But then I started finding out, no, this is not a one off. This is all over the nation. And, that was what, 12 years ago. And the experiences were just shocking to me.
Wow, that's so unfortunate. I'm so sorry that that happened to you. Unfortunately, like you said, it's not just there; it's pervasive. It's everywhere. And if I could just say something really quickly about these administrators, because they're the problem. We hear a lot about the teachers and a lot of the school boards and different things, but these administrators, they are the problem because administrators, from my experience, what I notice is administrators, what they do is they sit back in these cushy offices all day, drinking coffee, laughing, giggling, popping bonbons, and then they want to get mad at
Oh,
me.
believe me, because I had been in the teachers'
Oh
lounge.
yeah.
I think it was 1994. I was a bilingual teacher, so I know the atmosphere.
Right. So they sit back, these administrators, they sit back in these teachers' lounges, they drink coffee, they're laughing, giggling, popping bonbons all day, but then they want to get mad at a person like me and tell me what I'm doing wrong, tell me that I'm doing my job wrong when they have no idea. They have no clue how it is out there and what it's like on the front lines in those classrooms. And they want to get mad at us and tell us what we're doing wrong, and they could never even in a million years do our job. And that's the part that I don't like. But it's these administrators, and they upset the entire education ecosystem.
Well, you know, it was very interesting. This, of course, was a Texas school, El Paso, Texas. It was really interesting because when I was getting the training, and here I am, fresh out of college. What was I at that time? Like, well, early 20s, younger than you are now. I remember sitting in the training or orientation or whatever, and the principal said, "Yeah, in Texas, corporal punishment is allowed." So back at that time, I guess what? We could have spanked the kids. It's crazy. And how things have changed. I mean, can you imagine like giving a kid a swat on the bottom at school now, or even being harsh with the words
Right.
um,
I mean,
in a day and age when words themselves are considered violence? But we see these schools that are way out of control. We see Marxism, critical race theory, gender theory going into the schools. Tell me what you've learned and you know what you wrote about in your book about the subjects that are being taught, and are our kids being taught the basics to read, you know, reading, writing, arithmetic, or are they being indoctrinated?
no, what I noticed early on was a complete and total breakdown of all education standards. I remember one time I was substituting in the English room, and this was a very notorious English class at Hillcrest High School. I think that the teacher who taught this class is no longer there anymore, but she was handing out like actual coloring, like pages from coloring books to these 14-year-olds. They were reading Snow White and the Seven Dwarves in ninth grade. And it was ridiculous. So I just noticed a breakdown just of all types of academic standards. And then I would also notice students, I mean, teachers rather, would be talking to the students in sort of like this almost sing-song type kindergarten voice. Like they would be talking to them and speaking to them as if they were 5 years old. So the way that they coddle these kids, that's the problem. And then if you say anything, like you alluded to earlier, if you say anything to these kids, you're the issue. I get sent to HR for telling a kid to sit down, stop swearing, stop using this language. You're not going to be talking like you're on the corner of 73rd Street in my room. And I get sent to HR for that. But yet, these teachers, a lot of them, now there are some good teachers, don't get me wrong, but a
Yeah,
lot
no,
of these teachers go out of their way to coddle these kids. And there's no reason why a 14-year-old is working on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in ninth grade. Something's wrong with that.
well,
So that
given
was
that, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
so that was one thing that I saw. And another thing that I noticed, I remember I was teaching at Tinley Park High School, and I was in a Spanish room. And we all know Spanish is a gendered language, right? So
Yeah.
tell me why I was in this Spanish class and the teacher had all of these LGBTQ slogans all around the room. Her desk was just completely adorned in LGBTQ and all types of leftist bumper stickers. And I was sitting there, and it was funny to me because, like I said before, we know that Spanish is a gendered language. There is only male and female in Spanish. But if you look around the room, you see male, you see female, you see the equality flag, you see the trans flag, you see this flag, you see it all. And it's crazy because you're sort of giving these kids a false impression and screwing them up from the onset. So these kids are messed up from the beginning. And that's how I get a kid coming in my room whose name on the docket, or should I say on the roster, his name is Johnny, but he comes in the room telling me that this day his name is Mia, or just not to call his name at all.
Well, it's interesting because, you know, the Latinx movement to try to disgender, and I think all the Romance languages, Spanish, French, Italian, even Romanian, other languages, they're all gendered, as many are across the country. But talk about cultural appropriation, trying to change an entire language and the cultural foundation that rests on it. That's just, I mean, that's despicable. By the way, I'm not sure who that guy is in the foreground. No, that's that's a 20 or 21-year-old your host here teaching in Sri Lanka, and it
Oh
was
wow.
fun. Yeah, believe it or not. Yeah, I was a skinny chap there, but you know, it's it's just unthinkable what's happening in schools. You talk about these, what was it, high schoolers
Yeah.
reading Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. For a sense of perspective, a lot of the founder of this country, like Samuel Adams, for example, when he was a teenager, I want to say it was like 14, he could read in Greek and Latin. They understood literature and history. I know this too because I went through teacher training, linguistics, English as a second language, all the rest. kids are capable of learning multiple languages, and at some point, once their all their synapses connect and their brains sort of harden in a sense, um, the ability to learn languages diminishes greatly. So what we're doing is a real disservice to these kids by dumbing down their education.
It truly is, and that's the saddest part about it because at the high school I was working at, primarily Hillcrest, they only offer English language and sign language. Is English and sign language, and I believe Spanish. Those are the three. Well, English obviously is not a foreign language, so they offer Spanish and sign language are the only two foreign languages. They actually had a French teacher who came there on one day. She came there the first day of school at Hillcrest High School, had the worst experience of her life and walked out the door. She quit on the first day of school. So, that's the type of environment that we were up against. And it's
Well,
very disturbing.
and as you know, what it is cultural Marxism. It's
Hmm.
constructionism. And one thing I noticed about the school, and again, this is 12 plus years ago, uh, I was horrified because, when I went to school, we said the Pledge of Allegiance. We learned about the founding fathers, and they were heroes, but they were, saying Thomas Jefferson, was a rapist and slave owner and all that.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's a very skewed picture. They didn't bring in the fact that most of the founding fathers believed that slavery was a great sin. They just didn't necessarily know how to solve it right away because a lot of people who were slaves were very dependent on the system and turning them out on the streets with no education. So it was a problem. And I like to say it this way, like maybe Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wants us to be free of petroleum-based fuels, fossil fuels.
Hmm.
Why does she still drive a car? Why does she still drive a jet? It's because idealism is one thing, but getting there, it takes some time. This was a huge issue, but to position the founding fathers as some sort of pro-slavery, the country was built on their backs is simply not accurate because slavery had been a reality for thousands of years around the world, all cultures. Our country actually lost what 600,000 young men to end it. So I did
Yes.
not see any balance there, and I believe we need to be transparent and open. And no nation is without its national sins. But what I find is that this was 150 plus years ago, and we're still. I think talking about it as much as they do just keeps the trauma alive.
Yeah, I agree with that. I believe that you have to teach history with the warts and all. Let the children know exactly what happened. But at the same time, you have to be careful not to characterize and hold people who lived 200 years ago to the standards of today, because that's not fair. And I believe that when you go out of your way demonizing America over and over again, that's why it's no surprise that on 9/11, or should I say, yeah, on 9/11, I had a child actually laugh in my face when I said moment of silence, because over the PA, there was a moment of silence for all the people that we lost on 9/11. And for whatever reason, these kids were laughing and joking in the back of the room. And I said, hey, moment of silence. And they acted like I wasn't even speaking. Then I said it again, and they sort of like had this look on their face as if to say, like, who the blank does he think he is? And then when I said, "Look, I know you all weren't even born at that time, but almost 2,000, almost 3,000 people perished that day." They, then they started. I guess they sort of pulled back a little bit, but they, right before I said that, they laughed in my face when I tried to tell them that you need to be respectful during this time. And back to your original point about our history, when you teach history in such a skewed and negative way, it's no surprise why children won't even stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah.
If you go to these high schools today, depending on the demographics of the high school, and I know this sounds bad, but if you go to an all black high school, no one stands. No one stands for the pledge. If you go to a more mixed high school, you might have a handful of white kids stand, maybe one or two black kids, and a handful of Hispanic kids. But still, the majority of kids, black, white, Mexican, whatever, sit during the Pledge of Allegiance because they've been told through their education as well as through the culture that America is a awful, rotten, irredeemably racist country. And,
Yeah.
to stand or acknowledge it in any way, shape, or form is not something that they should do. And it's bad because not even the teachers, a lot of the teachers don't even stand. So it's like I always say, it's a complete and total breakdown across the board of all morality, all standards, and we're just sinking further and further into degradation.
Yeah, and I believe it was, and I might be getting the quotes mixed, but I believe it was Frederick Douglass who called the Constitution a glorious liberty document, and I think
Hmm.
it was Martin Luther King Jr. who called the Constitution the Great Promissory Note. So
Yes.
there's an acknowledgement by both of these gentlemen. No, we're not perfect, but the ideal is there. The
Hmm.
roots of it are in the Constitution and Bill of Rights. Have we done it perfectly from the beginning? No. Have we made progress? Absolutely. But what the Marxist revolution, the color revolution, wants to do is bury all of the history, wipe it all out, and then come to find out, the Southern Poverty Law Center has apparently been paying Ku Klux Klan and others, which
Yep.
is very interesting because some of us have said all along that the Klan were Democrats. Here I am in Tennessee, and I recently learned that the Klan started in I want to say southern Tennessee.
Yes, it
But it's
did.
interesting because Jason Aldean came under fire for doing his try that in a small town in front of a Tennessee courthouse. I did some research on that, and it was very interesting because the story of this young black man being hung from the courthouse is really what I found out. First of all, that there was a populist movement that was against the Democrats because the Democrats were terrorizing everybody with this kind of behavior in the Ku Klux Klan. And there was a populist movement. It was black and white people who farmed together, lived together, which is what I find in the South today. Most people just get along. And the allegation was that the young man had sexually assaulted the girl. Well, actually, the girl's mother ended up standing up for the little boy, and the sheriff's wife waiting for the sheriff. And so there were these good people of both races. Even the mother of the girl who allegedly had been assaulted, they said, we don't believe he did it. So as they were watching, he was dragged out of the courthouse again by Southern Democrats, KKK. And the movement today is called a populist movement, and I see that same sort of ethic and approach toward one another, where it's not color that matters; it's the content of your character. So that was very interesting to me. Now put that together with what we just found out about the Southern Poverty Law Center, and the great theory that the Democrats have had is that, well, yeah, that was Democrats, but we switched; it became the Republicans. That's a lie. We've always known
Yeah.
it's a lie. And
Right.
when you saw the protests over George, gosh, I'm glad to say I've almost forgotten his last name, up in Minnesota, uh, George Floyd.
Uh-huh.
You saw Democrats, bowing, having the African scarves or whatever it was.
Hmm.
It's pandering. It absolutely is
It
pandering.
is.
Do you think Nancy Pelosi cares about inner city Chicago voters?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And
Well,
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, and I was going to say, yeah, I told you I went with Mike Lindell to Chicago for the what was it? I'm trying to remember the name of it. I didn't get enough sleep last night. The DNC, and we sat in a room of inner city black Chicagoans who had been very excited about Biden, but they were switching to Trump, and the reason why was because all the community resources and the promises made to them, the Democrats gave to the illegal immigrants. So I think the record is showing quite clearly uh, that the Democrats really haven't changed. They've just gotten better at hiding it.
Of course, what they do, what's the Democrat playbook of the last half century? They play on emotions, and they become masters at is feigning like they have this great moral superiority and this great moral investment in the black community, that they're going to give you welfare, they're going to give you quote unquote voting rights, they're going to give you all these different social programs, but in exchange for that, you have to give up more and more of your freedom. You have to give up more and more of your sovereignty, and the government gets larger and larger. And just to touch on the point that you mentioned early, when people want to talk about a big switch, there never was a big switch between the parties. What happened was, and I always say this to people who try to claim there was a big switch, I say, okay, well then find me 10 original Southern Democrats who changed their party from Democrat to Republican without having some sort of ideological or spiritual change. And they always want to say Strom Thurmond, and then they'll throw out maybe one or two, but they can't really do that. I say, if you would have had let's say all the legislatures down south, you would have had tens of thousands of people representing those people who live down there. You would have had entire legislatures flip over, but there is absolutely no data on that. And outside of Strom Thurmond, they can never give me a response. And I always say, well, Strom Thurmond isn't a good example either, because first of all, he converted to Christianity. Secondly, he actually had African Americans working in his office, and these were not like secretarial positions. They weren't just answering the phones. These were high-level policy strategists that he hired. So when they talk about a big switch, there was no big switch. And the Democrat Party of old is the same Democrat Party today. They just have learned to lie. And unfortunately, Republicans, they do a very bad job at advocating in the Black community. Specifically here in Illinois, I can say, just from my own personal experience here in Illinois, the Republican Party is a joke. The Illinois GOP is a complete total joke. They really don't even exist. There's no outreach into the Black community. And then when you get these sort of smaller niche advocacy groups that crop up around Chicago, you get all these establishment types who sort of want to jump down their throats and sort of crush them and stamp them out and delegitimize them, because they sort of show up the Illinois GOP, who refuses to go out and do grunt work, who refuses to come out to the South Side of Chicago, really anywhere in Chicago, and make their presence known. So apathetic, weak Republicans have allowed the Democrats to co-opt the Black community, which the Republicans used to advocate for and used to represent.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to take a little break to plug Freedom Talk Magazine, and it gives me an excuse to look for a video I'd like to play at least part of, to kind of show you what happened in Chicago that I think is case in point. We'll be right back.
America's founders warned that without knowledge and virtue, no nation can remain free. Yet through the steady infiltration of Marxist ideology, we have been stripped of both, and we are no longer a moral and educated people. To save America, we must spark nothing less than a national renaissance. That's why you need Freedom Talk Magazine, the journal of truth and virtue. We cultivate enlightened thinking and principled living, offering unique insights into the issues and remarkable people defining our world. Sign up today for your free subscription to Freedom Talk Magazine and join the new American Renaissance.
Well, I couldn't find the one I wanted, but let me try this here. I might have to skip through it some, but this is some coverage. So at this event with Mike Lindell, I had contacted my friends at the Epic Times, and they did a report. So I'm going to take a look here.
But after witnessing Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson's administration's spending, they now say they're voting for Trump.
A lot of these people are at the city council meetings in Chicago all the time. Mayor Johnson just posted that we have a $500 million shortfall, but he spent $500 million on migrants. So now he's considering ways to raise revenues and taxes from the citizens who he's not taking care of. The single biggest issue in Chicago right now that everybody's talking about is the migrant crisis. It's causing a huge problem here in Chicago.
Darden has a message to Republicans who want to win the votes of Black Americans.
Come talk to these people. These people are regular people. They're Americans. Many of their families have been here for 200 years or more. So these aren't immigrants by any stretch of the imagination. These are true blood Americans, and they just want to be heard, and they want people to reach out.
Charles Williams of the Ward 6 Republican Committee also recently switched parties. He says voting Democrat in 2020 was a big mistake. Williams says the Democrats' policies do not help the homeless people of Chicago. Violence has gone up and the economy has suffered.
We're a smorgasbord of smart and capable individuals. We don't need anyone else to help us. We need to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and get the job done. We need more businesses. We need more people that's into the job industry. We need more trades in the community. And I absolutely feel that Trump has the answer for that.
Williams also mentioned some of the legislation on social issues Democrats passed, which caused him to switch parties.
Allowing children to come to school and make the decision whether they want to be a boy or a girl, and parents don't have say-so on that. Like, these are the things that made me change my viewpoint. That's absolutely ridiculous to me, and I will never accept that.
The Democratic National Convention was just held in Chicago.
Yeah, so I was right there and talked to the people you saw on camera and several others, and the stories are riveting. I might want to play another one. I know we're running up against time here, a shorter one, but what I found was that here are these people who are, from a very different lifestyle than mine. I don't live in the inner city. I'm melanin challenged, you might say. And they were Democrats. So supposedly we're supposed to be so different. And what I found is that we were just people. We had things in common. I'm a big guy, but I literally shed some tears with people just talking about how hard it is to afford groceries sometime, and how do you get your kids an education. I have 5 kids. So there was a lot of common ground there. And I think the assumption that Democrats want us to believe is that based on the color of your skin, you're going to go with the Democrats, you're going to vote with the Democrats. Have you seen any pressure within the Black community because you're a conservative that maybe you're, I don't know, like Larry Elder says he's been called all these, race traitors and things like that. Have you seen any pressure like that?
Of course. I mean, you get it from your own family sometimes. Forget about the public. So yeah, you get it. You get it on Facebook. You get it in your family. You get it out in the public. If you're doing signatures and they see that it's a Republican, you get nasty looks, or you get idiots who will attack you. I dealt with that when I ran for Congress. I dealt with that when I would help different friends of mine who have previously run for several different offices around the city. So yes, you get that. But what you have to understand is that it's ignorance. Plain and simple, it's ignorance. These are the same people. And I don't mean to sound rude, but I'm going to say it. These are the same people. If we were back during slavery times, they would have been the ones running to the slave master, telling on us for trying to escape. And Black people need to understand that the Democratic Party is offering nothing but death, destruction, and destitution in our streets. Chicago has been run by Democrats for the last listen to me, for the last 90 something years, since 1931. Since 1931, we have been Democrat controlled. So where has that gotten us? What has come of that? We have shootings every single week. We have team takeovers. We have a derelict mayor. We have a Chicago teachers union that is just completely run amok. And let me get into the teachers union a little bit, because today, May 1st, is what they call their May Day walkout. So they're walking out of the schools on today, and they're drafting these kids to come out in the streets and help them in these politically charged protests, when these kids can't even read at grade level, they can't write, they can't do math. It's a 20% literacy rate, and they're completely just disengaged from academics altogether on today, and they're being challenged to go out into the streets and help Brandon Johnson, our derelict mayor, Stacey Davis Gates, the president of the Chicago Teachers Unions, act a plumb fool in the streets. So we're not teaching them how to read and write. They can't read. They can barely write their name, but yet we want to encourage them to go out and take to the streets and act like wannabe $10 activists. And that's the issue. And that's what they're trying to do. We're no longer trying to raise up children to be upstanding, free-thinking adults. What they want are mindless automatons who they can activate to become activists and weaponize against anyone who stands in their way. What they want are foot soldiers. These are classic communists, Marxists, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, and I do want to play this video. It's a little less than 2 minutes, I think, because you're going to see a working mom, and I related to her a lot. I talked to her. She's one of the ones that I shed some tears with, because I related to what she said. I want to show you this because it's very moving.
What was the breaking point? What was like the one thing where something, I can't do this Biden thing again?
To keep on seeing these Mexicans, they showed a news report where they showed Chinese, Mexicans, all the other races and everything else, and these wars going on, and we're steady pouring money into everybody else's country but our own. These are our people. These people work every day. I'm going back. I don't have. Do you know?
Let's be in the far right corner.
Let me, because I am a little bit intimidated, but understand me. I'm a average Black woman. I'm not rich. I'm not whatever. So I take off for a couple of days because I don't feel good or whatever it may be. I have to do something for my child. I don't make that much money. I don't make that much money to have to see somebody get a cell phone, food stamps, cash. I'm looking at them. I'm riding past a police station. I'm riding past all these police stations, and they're getting cars. They're getting housing. Before, I had a brother that needed a place to stay, and he couldn't get nothing because the immigrants got everything first. So he got knocked off the list. So, and he is an elderly person, and I felt sorry for him. Like I tried my best to try to help him to find a place, but I could not. And here I am, I'm struggling. My refrigerator is empty. I have a few things, so my check hit, I went grocery shopping. So now I have no money to pay a car note. So now I have no money until next pay period to pay something else. Yes, that is hurtful. I am a woman. I have a child. My daughter's school. I want her to be an after-school program. There is so much they get up north. There's so much they get in all these other communities for everybody else, but I can't even put my own daughter in a nice program for her to learn something new.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking, and all I saw in that room were just beautiful people, and I never felt like anybody looked down on me because of my color. We just talked as parents. I was a single father for 3 years. Not only did I struggle with all of that, I'd go to church and they'd hold fundraisers for single moms. I'm writing on the comment cards, hey, single parents. Like, I knew a single father who worked nights cleaning the hospital so he could be with his children during their time. So he just basically survived on naps, and what actually the Uniparty is trying to do is keep us divided, keep emphasizing the differences. I had so much in common with everybody in that room. And at some point we've got to stop buying into this divisive rhetoric.
Exactly. The more that they can keep us divided, the easier it is to keep people at each other's throats. The more and more compartmentalized that we are and sort of isolated into our own echo chambers, if you will, the easier it is for those on top to gain more and more control right up under our noses. And I think that's why we have to get past this color thing. We're all people. We're all going through something, and regardless of where you come from, in America, one of the things that you are promised, if you work hard, you can make it. And it doesn't matter what your color of skin is. You might have to work. Now, granted, you may have to work harder because you come from a certain background or you have less resources or what have you. That does exist. But we all can make it. And there's no reason for us to harbor all of this resentment and hatred. But we're unfortunately, we're dealing with a major political movement that wants to drag us all back and say that if your skin color is whatever, you can't make it without government. And if your skin color is this, then you need to give up all your things and redistribute your wealth or whatever you've accrued through hard work or lineage, what have you, to other people. And I just think that's disturbing. And watching that lady on that clip just now sort of jogged my memory a little bit because I remember when my one of my relatives, their basement flooded and they needed money from FEMA, but they couldn't get it because FEMA was so busy under Joe Biden spending money on illegal aliens and spending billions and billions of dollars. So when we here on the South Side got hit with the flood about two years ago or a year and a half ago, I think it was like the fall of 2024. So about a year and a half ago, many of us couldn't even get it. Thank God my family, we really didn't need it. We got a little seepage. But I know people who had standing water in their basements and they couldn't get 10 cents from FEMA because they had given it all away to these illegal aliens. And going back to the schools, because that's the world I come from. That's why I say to parents, if you can, you need to pull your kids out of Chicago public schools because they're doing a disservice and they aren't helping your children do anything. They're bringing in all these illegal aliens to the point where they're now diluting the pool, the system, if you will, of help in these classrooms because you're getting more and more of these illegals in there. And the children who need the help, who are tax-paying citizens' children, they can't even get the help because you have all these people from Venezuela, Nicaragua, God knows where, in the classroom, and you're diluting the ecosystem in the classroom more and more, and the help is getting more and more scarce.
Yeah.
And that's why I tell parents, you need to be proactive. You need to understand that you do have options, and sometimes you have to realize all the time, actually, that you are your child's last best hope. You're your child's last best advocate. Go up to the schools if you can. Ask to see the curriculum. There's something called the PPRA, Protection of People's Rights Amendment, that says that as a parent, you can ask for a curriculum. You can say, I want to know what my child is learning this day, X amount of days, ... And they have to tell you. So parents, you just have to stand up, but understand that no one's coming to save your children. You have to be proactive. And unfortunately, the situation is only going to get worse because they've allowed the entire third world to come over here. And we can only deport so many of them. We just don't have the capacity to get them all out like we need to, all at once.
And there's been this war on parents and
Yes.
you know my story. You know that I'm standing up for these parents who were weaponized against. Go to realfreedomtalk.com and go to the Parents Demanding Justice page. We've got a dossier there with detailed stories, including my own. But we stood up during this craziness. Some of us I stood up for parents who were coming into my coffee shop saying these COVID policies, which, by the way, the districts were paid millions to keep in place, even though the science didn't support it. They were coming saying, look, these are driving our kids to suicide. And I ultimately, for making that stand, I got arrested, sentenced to jail, $10,000 in fines. And we have story after story like that. Unfortunately, the current DOJ is trying to project like they're helping, like the weaponization working group is still doing anything meaningful. I want to play a clip that you've seen there, but what's really happened is that good, upstanding parents who are heroic enough to stand up for their kids and speak out at school board meetings and schools. By the way, I was arrested and initially charged with a simple misdemeanor through trespassing. They later stacked them on. My lawyer said they're prosecuting like these are felonies. I'm for sitting in an office meeting that I was invited to, sitting and doing nothing. So, but I want to give you guys a glimpse of this. And this is going to be shocking because I co-founded the Parents Demanding Justice Alliance with several other notable people. We've been to the White House. We've been in the West Wing. We've been all over DC. We've talked to everybody. And yet I went up January 23rd to meet with Vance Day, who's senior counsel for Todd Blanche. And when I heard what he was saying and realized, I mean, this started bringing back trauma because I realized, oh my gosh, we assume the Trump administration is going to be on our side, but they have not changed the posture toward parents. Take a look.
Government can't fix a lot of what happened in
that the federal government broke.
The federal government breaks a lot of shit, but that doesn't mean that the federal government. Then you need to sue the federal government.
With what money, Vance? With what money?
Okay, well, you want me to give you the money? I can't give you the money.
No, but this is where parents are at. We have had our lives devastated.
If you want to give me something that shows document A says this, federal this, this, I am positive that the federal government influenced the county police or whatever. I bet that happened. I bet it did. But that doesn't mean you have a cause of action.
It is in black and white. I've sent you links to it.
No, you haven't. You haven't sent me links.
I sent you the link to the Americans for Liberty report, the smoking gun report. We sent you the dossier. I'm the first name on the dossier. It is all there. We took my case and some others, and we put them in a file and we sent them to DOJ. I don't know what's going on with Ed, but we sent that to Ed. We brought it to Vince Haley. We've talked to him in person. I sat there and personally told him my story. We've been all over the media. I don't want to be contentious.
The Merrick Garland memo of October 2020.
I'll remove that for now. That's on X. You can go to @RealFreedomTalk and see that. I think I'm going to put it up on the website too, but there's plenty of this, including an article I wrote recently because the feedback I've gotten from the pushback, it hasn't been public. They haven't been accountable. But behind the scenes, they've been pressuring journalists to pull the story. They have, I've gotten messages from people in the inner circle that I can't be trusted because I legally recorded a meeting that exposed that they're still calling us terrorists. I don't recall. Did the part play where he said we don't negotiate with terrorists? That's in there. But again, if you want to see these things, go on my X or go to realfreedomtalk.com. But the hypocrisy is that they're trying to portray me in a negative light because I took a legal recording and shared that for transparency. And yet, what's just happened with FISA? They have broad surveillance powers, and it's supposed to be to surveil foreigners. I think that's what the F is about. But they've been surveilling us for years, and they have a problem with me doing a legal recording. DC is first one-party consent, which means as long as you're in the meeting, you can record it and you don't have to tell anyone. And yet what they've done to a lot of these parents, J6ers, others, is they bugged them. They surveilled them. I had a van outside my coffee shop with all the wires and everything on it, surveillance equipment. Like, we're not stupid, okay? So all we want is for the DOJ to say, yeah, we're actually going to reform. It's in executive orders. They need to fire and prosecute anybody who participated in this fraudulent characterization of parents as terrorists. But here's what I'm really concerned about, is that the parents who stand up to what you're writing about, to what you're seeing, will get persecuted, not only by the public and the districts. And by the way, what the DOJ did under Garland was pretty brilliant, because he knew, and that America First Liberty report has FOIA emails and everything. The trail is very clear. But what he did was he realized that they couldn't indict people federally, so he helped craft a letter with the National School Board Association claiming that all these parents were hostile and violent and threats, even though the feds couldn't indict anyone. And then they participated with the National School Board Association's schools and local law enforcement to have parents arrested and to have an FBI threat tag put on parents as domestic terrorists. So people say, well, Trump can't pardon these parents because they got charged at the state level. Well, who hired the hitman? We all know the feds orchestrated the whole thing. So I would argue, yeah, they should be pardoned for that. But I mean, for you as possibly a future parent, if this gets unresolved and the Democrats get back in office, does this make you confident that someday you're going to be able to stand up and have your speech protected, or does it have a chilling effect on your free speech?
I think that it has a chilling effect, because if no one is held accountable, they're just going to do it again. The Democrats did a whole lot during Joe Biden's term, and a lot of it has been undone, but a lot of it has not been undone. A lot of the legal things have never even been challenged or even brought up. So if they are allowed to skate on this and many other, a myriad of other things as well, they're only going to do it again, because they don't learn lessons. They only get more and more emboldened. So definitely everything that was done that was wrong or untoward definitely needs to be looked into, and all those wrongs need to be made right while we have power, because if they ever get back in power again, which I pray to God that they don't, it's going to be worse. It's going to be 10 times worse.
Well, here's another thing, and I'd like your help in sharing this, and perhaps you could help get it to Laura Trump as well. But a fellow named Chad Missel, he was praised by Todd Blanche. Come to find out, he was, I want to say, senior counsel, some role with Rod Rosenstein, participated in the witch hunt against Trump, the Durham, what was it, the Durham investigation? No, what was, anyway,
Mm-hmm.
I think Durham was anyway, this investigation, witch hunt against Trump.
Mm-hmm.
He's now been with the DOJ. He was apparently Bondi's chief of staff. Blanche is praising him. So I posted some of this information. JoeHoff.com put up an article, does President Trump know the weaponization working group has shut down? He claimed that no, it hasn't, and we're still doing all this stuff. And then he used examples that had nothing to do with weaponization. He has not answered how it was appropriate for Blanche's senior counsel to characterize parents as terrorists. And one of the examples he gave of so-called helping with the weaponization was the reinstatement of firing squads. Now, I put those two together when they're still calling us terrorists and authorizing firing squads. That doesn't give me a lot of confidence. It doesn't make me feel better. I think if there's 4 people watching this or 4,000, I think you have to start talking about that and go onto my X and see it, because it's all documented, it's all there, and they're not providing answers. Look, both times I've been into the DOJ, this lady who led us up, she'd been working at the DOJ for 50 years. She talked to all the presidents she's worked under. There are people entrenched in there that the latest administration, they just wait them out. The DOJ is still filled with deep state people. And yes, there are people within the DOJ who are too afraid to talk about it, but some have resigned and they're now talking about it. So what do we do? That's a big question for you.
It's a big question. I honestly don't know if I have the answer for it, but what I know is that we don't have long. I'll just put it that way. There's not a long time to fix this, because if Democrats take any form of power, it's gonna be worse.
Yeah, and some people, look, I would love it if Todd Blanche were a good player. I would love it if we could trust the DOJ. Nothing's happened for these parents. It's been almost a year and a half. We asked for something very simple that doesn't take a group of lawyers. We said, would you please issue a letter of apology just to these parents? Because I have an older child who hasn't talked to me in 4 years because of the negative press and the demonization. If we get that, it could help people with marriages, jobs, family. Pam Bondi promised that, didn't deliver it. I even drafted it. I would like to get that from President Trump. I've asked for a small ceremony on the White House lawn to honor these parents, where Trump would say, thank you for standing up for our children. Some reason they think they can't do that, and yet they're going to spend $70 million to set up an MMA ring on the White House lawn to celebrate the president's birthday. Now, I don't know if Trump sees this going on. I think he's got gatekeepers that tell him everything's fine. But meanwhile, his base is not happy. He's not happy because the promises that we were delivered haven't been made. No, citizens have not gotten justice, and the rhetoric continues. So my concern is, part of the executive order, part of Pam Bondi's initial memo about the weaponization working group was to get the people out of DOJ who participated in this targeting. That hasn't been done. Nothing's been done. So I think about you. I think about my kids. I think about your future and your generation. If we don't deal with this now, I fear it's only going to get worse.
It will get worse. That's why we have to fix it now. We have to.
Yeah.
And we just have to keep the pressure on. And regardless of what it takes, we have to try to get the message to the president directly, because I believe that the president has good people working for him. But, you know, in every administration, there's always maybe one or two, and that's all that it takes to sort of jam things up. So I think that we just have to keep the pressure on.
I just want people to be open-minded.
Yes.
Recognize there's propaganda going on. There's positioning. Todd Blanche has been in charge of the DOJ since the beginning. Even Dan Bongino pointed out, and I need to isolate this video clip, but he said basically, like, he's the guy that runs it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in this meeting with Vance Day, he said, yeah, Blanche is like the CEO. Pam Bondi is like the chair of the board. She just gets updates, but she's not involved in her workings. So now suddenly that Pam Bondi's gone, Blanche is a superstar. Why didn't these things get done when he was running the show? So I want everybody to look at the hype and the propaganda and the wins that are put on the board and ask, have these really done anything to help the victims of weaponization? And look very closely, look into Blanche's record. He was a registered Democrat till 2024. And I'm not saying people can't change their stripes, but I am critical of this because I am one of those victims of weaponization. We still struggle to get a foothold back in life. Everything's gone, our home and everything. So to go up and to be told you're going to get help, to have executive orders in place, laws in place, promises, and to go up and be told once again, we don't negotiate with terrorists. Why should I have a positive view of Todd Blanche? And he refuses to answer it. He refused. I've offered so many times as a representative of all these targeted parents to sit down. So I'm just asking, if you're watching this, look with a critical eye, because something that's happened to Trump over and over again is he gets a DA in office. Everybody's excited. This happened with Bill Barr. He was going to be the fixer. He was going to be the guy that goes after the deep state. Mueller, that's not Durham, Mueller. He helped head off the Mueller investigation, and then he turned on President Trump. I just want to say I am very appreciative of all that Trump's done, but I think he has a blind spot there. And I think he trusts people. But believe me, the deep state, the people who've been pursuing him, are crafty enough to put somebody into a position and have them for years serve President Trump, but not have his best interests at heart. So that's my concern.
I agree with especially the point about Bill Barr, because he was such a disappointment. I mean, really horrible disappointment.
I thought he was great. I watched a speech that was very patriotic, and I thought, wow, what a good guy.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, please be skeptical. Please do your homework. Please don't get caught up in like Benny Johnson and these others who are just Mike Davis. They're just like praising him endlessly. What have they actually done? And have they delivered on the promises? I think it's a very important question for everybody. If they're characterizing these great, heroic, nonviolent school parents as terrorists, what are they going to think about J6 people? What are they going to think about abortion protesters? What are they going to think about you standing up and pointing out the deficiencies of the school system? I would be very troubled about this. And I've gotten shadow banned from it and pressured and demonized. This isn't consistent with a reformed DOJ. They've been in place a long time. these people who've been in these jobs for 50 years, is this going to be turned around in a matter of months for them? I don't think so.
I think that when you have something as entrenched the rot I'm talking about in the DOJ is unfortunately, and I guess unfortunately, it's not going to be turned around in 4 years. Can they put a dent in it? Yes. Can they do a lot if they get started? Yeah. But will it be turned around? No. That's not. I don't think that's realistic. And I think that a lot of people have a lot of high hopes for different things. But you have to. I think that there is a nuance there that you have to understand that something so rotten to its core cannot be fixed in 4 years. But I do believe that that more can be done, and I hope to see that. That I'm hopeful that more will be done. That's sort of all I can really hope for and say.
Well, and I think it's unreasonable not even to be willing to issue a formal apology for what was done to these parents who are still
Yeah.
suffering, still being
Mhm.
persecuted,
Yeah,
and
that's
also
that's
honor
terrible.
them. That's a small ask, and
Yeah.
they can say, "Oh well, takes manpower, all this stuff." That could be done in a day. It's
Mhm.
a sign of President Trump could sign it. I even drafted an EO with those things in it, and it's very, very simple.
Mhm.
So anyway, Gino, thank you. I want to ask you where people can find your book, how they can support you. What we want to do, you're going to be in the next issue of Freedom Talk. We want to sell your books. Guys, you got to get this book. You got to support Gino, what he's doing. Get this book out there. Tell your friends about it. Start book clubs. Read it. This cover is amazing. Maybe tell us about this cover and then where we can find the book and how we can support you.
Sure. So this cover is actually for those who I don't know how many are old enough to remember now, but um, back in the 1950s, there was a comic book series, a comic book company called EC Comics, and they put out Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, uh, Shock Suspense Stories, also The Haunt of Fear. So they put out all these really incredible comic books that unfortunately a lot of parents didn't like them, so they ended up testifying before Congress, and they ended up getting banned. But anyhow, I sort of created this cover to sort of mimic or be a throwback to that time period, and to be a throwback to those horror comics, because not only am I a huge fan of that series, and also of course the television show Tales from the Crypt from the 80s and 90s, but this is a horror story. This is what I went through. This is my life for 14 months, and it was a horrific thing that happened to me. So I just sort of tried to, I guess, see the light in it and give it a little campy, fun comic book cover. But anyhow, you can find the book on Amazon.com. You can find it on my website, www.genoyoung.net. That's GENOYOUNG.net. The book is sold out 3 times. It almost sold out a 4th time. Then we got more in stock. Now it's about to almost sell out for a 5th time. So, I think there are only 19 or no, excuse me, 16 physical copies left on Amazon as of this morning. So if you want one, definitely go and get one. But if they sell out, you can go right to my website and get it directly from my publisher, and we'll get it out to you this week.
Awesome. Well, let me fix this here. Well, that's great, Gino. And Gino is supporting Freedom Talk magazine. We accept advertisers in the magazine, and we tend to say, what's your budget? We'll work with that. But the more books Gino sells, the better Freedom Talk magazine does, the better Gino does. And Gino, we're glad to have you as a friend. I'm super excited for your article that you're giving us to promote your book. And by the way, if you're watching this and you have a show or you have a favorite show and you'd like to help Gino get more exposure, just reach out to Freedom Talk or reach out to Gino. Again, tell us how people could reach you, say if they want to have you on a show.
Okay, the best way to reach me is through email. You can message me directly via my website, or just the email is GenoWritez, as in Zorro, at gmail.com. So Geno Writes with a Z at gmail.com.
Love it. Well, Gino, thank you for spending the extra time. You're welcome back anytime. You're going to see more of Gino. We're going to be promoting him, helping him. One thing I'd like to do is a Meet the Author live event with you pretty soon, and maybe we'll get some books and do some signed book giveaways and things.
Yeah, let's do that. That would be great.
Awesome. Well, Gino, we'll talk to you soon, and thanks for coming on. By the way, just after this, I'm going to go ahead and play that full clip of the recording for anybody who's interested. But Gino, thanks a lot. I'm sure you have things to move on to, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much for having me. God bless, and thank you for all that you do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
response, as well as the whole DOJ, was, we don't negotiate with terrorists. You do not threaten us.
Where was the threat? The threat was to say, we're just going to talk about how nothing's been done.